Is soy secretly dangerous? You've heard it. Soy causes cancer. Soy gives men boobs. Soy messes with your thyroid. Soy is processed garbage. Let's clear this up once and for all. I'm gonna break down the most common myths about soy and show you what the research actually says. If you're still avoiding soy because of something you heard in the early 2000s, it's time to talk, because the research has come a long way and some of the old soy fears, they just don't hold up anymore. As someone who values evidence-based nutrition, I have gone deep researching the latest studies on soy to bring you the scientific truth. Okay, now before we dive in, I want to share that this video is not sponsored by a soy company or even aimed at getting you to eat more soy. Nope, no sponsors. This is all about the facts. And I totally get that when you've been told something or believed something for a long time, it's really hard to consider that those facts or narrative could be inaccurate or just plain wrong. So I urge you to keep an open mind, and if you want to dive further into the research, all my sources are going to be linked down in the description. And real quick, let's just touch on what soy is. Soy is a bean, and it makes up tofu, tempeh, miso, edamame. Soy is unique because it contains high amounts of isoflavones, which are a type of plant phytoestrogen that has similar but much weaker effects than human estrogen. Now let's get to the latest research. We need to start with what's probably the number one concern I hear about soy, that it basically causes man boobs. Seriously, this might be the most persistent myth of them all, the idea that soy will somehow feminize men or cause them to develop breast tissue. But here's what's crazy. This entire fear traces back to a single case report from 2008 about a man who developed breast tenderness and some other symptoms after consuming an extraordinary amount of soy. I'm talking 12 servings of soy milk daily. That's 12 cups of soy milk every single day. And those 12 cups is approximately 360 milligrams of isoflavones daily, about 9 times what the typical Japanese man consumes. The title of this study is even called An Unusual Case of Gynecomastia. Unusual is definitely right. If we eat any food in major excess, there's definitely going to be some symptoms happening. Add on to that, if you eat something in major excess, that means you are not getting enough of other foods. Okay, back to soy. To put this in perspective, that would be like drinking this much soy milk every single day. But here's what the comprehensive research actually shows. A meta-analysis examined 32 different studies and found no effects of soy protein or isoflavones on testosterone levels, sex hormone binding globulin, free testosterone. More recently, there was another meta-analysis in reproductive toxicology, and it found no effects on estrogen levels in men even when they consumed as much as 150 milligrams of isoflavones daily. That's about 4 to 5 servings of tofu. And to put this into perspective again, the average man in Japan consumes about 30 to 50 milligrams of isoflavones daily with no documented hormonal effects. And Japan certainly doesn't have a population-wide issue with men developing man boobs. The bottom line is that at normal consumption levels, even daily consumption, soy does not affect male hormones or cause feminization. This myth really needs to be put to rest once and for all. And for a little personal story here, I've got a case study in my own house. I buy soy milk. We eat tofu once, maybe twice a week here. My husband is drinking soy milk here and there and definitely having tofu once or twice a week, and no man boobs, trust me. Now let's talk about soy and breast cancer. This fear stems from the fact that soy contains those isoflavones, which are the phytoestrogens, plant compounds that have a similar structure to our human estrogen, but they're much, much weaker. The early concern was that these phytoestrogens might act like estrogen in the body and potentially fuel hormone-sensitive cancers like some breast cancers. Now here's where the research has really dramatically evolved. A 2019 meta-analysis found that soy intake was actually associated with a reduced risk of breast cancer, especially in Asian populations. And even more compelling, a 2017 study found that women with breast cancer who consumed the highest amounts of isoflavones had a 21% lower risk of dying than those who consumed the lowest amounts. And let me share a quick story about this dramatic shift in these recommendations. When I first started my studies to become a dietitian, the general guidance was to basically caution breast cancer survivors around eating soy. Now, it's totally flipped. Now, major cancer organizations, including the American Cancer Society and the American Institute for Cancer Research, explicitly state that not only is soy safe for breast cancer survivors, it may be beneficial. Some of the confusion was related to studies done on mice and rats and their increased risk of breast cancer with high doses of soy isoflavones. However, mice and rats break down and process isoflavones much differently than humans. The key difference now is that we know that phytoestrogens can actually block stronger estrogens from binding to estrogen receptors in breast tissue, potentially providing that protective effect. So rather than fueling breast cancer, whole soy foods may actually help protect against it. If you're enjoying these evidence-based nutrition insights, you will love my email newsletter where I share my latest research findings and practical nutrition tips for optimizing your health through delicious foods and recipes. Click the link in the description to sign up. Now let's talk about soy and thyroid function. Concerns about soy and thyroid function stem from the fact that in test tube studies, isoflavones in soy can inhibit the enzyme that makes thyroid hormone. This test tube study led to fears that soy consumption might lead to hypothyroidism. But here's where things get interesting. Do these test tube findings actually translate to real human studies? Let's look at what happens when we move from the petri dish to people. The clinical studies in humans tell a more nuanced story. A comprehensive review in the Journal of Thyroid examined 14 different studies and found that in adults with normal thyroid function who consume adequate iodine, which is really important for our thyroid, soy has no adverse effects on our thyroid function. The key factor appears to be iodine status. In individuals with marginal iodine intake, very high soy consumption might theoretically impact thyroid function. However, this can be easily addressed by ensuring adequate iodine intake, something that's really readily available in iodinized salt and many multivitamins. Now, for people who already have hypothyroidism and take medication like levothyroxine, there is one legitimate consideration. Soy protein can affect the absorption of thyroid medication. But the solution to this is one that most people who already take levothyroxine know. Take your thyroid medication on an empty stomach at least 30 to 60 minutes before consuming any soy foods or any other foods in general. I've worked with several clients with Hashimoto's who were told to completely avoid soy. But after reviewing the evidence together, we found that they could safely include moderate amounts of soy in their diets as long as they timed it appropriately with their medication and ensured that adequate iodine intake. This opened up many more dietary options for them without negative impacts on their thyroid function. The key takeaway is that for people with normal thyroid function and adequate iodine intake, soy foods are safe for your thyroid. If you have existing thyroid issues, consult with your doctor, your dietitian, or your healthcare provider about the timing of your soy consumption relative to your medication. But complete avoidance is rarely necessary. Soy and fertility. It's one of those topics that gets a lot of attention, and I totally understand why. When you are trying to conceive, you are consuming as much information as you can to arm yourself and fuel yourself the best way so that you can have that baby you're dreaming of. But the truth is, soy and fertility is a little complicated. Now, soy has a lot going on for it. It's a great source of plant-based protein, it's full of antioxidants, might even help protect against certain diseases. But some people worry that it could affect hormones and fertility, especially in women. So let's talk about where that concern comes from. The focus is again on isoflavones, the natural compound in soy that acts a bit like estrogen in our body. And in very high amounts, they can potentially affect reproductive hormones. Some studies have shown that large amounts of soy protein may lower levels of FHS and LH, two hormones that help with ovulation and fertility. But before you swear off tofu or tempeh, here's the thing. These hormonal changes only showed up when people ate over 60 grams of soy protein in a day for more than a month. To put that into perspective, a typical serving of tofu has about 8 to 10 grams of soy protein. So you'd have to eat 6 or more servings of tofu every single day to get even close to those levels, and most people just don't come anywhere near that. And when we look at studies in real people, not animals or extreme situations, the results are actually pretty reassuring. One study found that soy might even help women going through fertility treatments, especially if they've been exposed to things like BPA, which is the chemical that can mess with our hormones. In this study, women who ate soy had higher pregnancy and live birth rates compared to those who didn't. And for men, the concerns about fertility usually center around sperm quality. Now, there was a meta-analysis from 2020 that found no effects of soy consumption on sperm concentration, count, or motility in healthy men. So yes, soy can affect hormones if you eat crazy huge amounts every single day, but moderate soy consumption, just like any other food, can be a healthy addition to a fertility diet with benefits like protein, fiber, and essential vitamins. The bottom line is that eating moderate, or dare I say normal, amounts of soy as part of a balanced diet does not harm fertility. In fact, it might even help support reproductive health for both men and women. And here's a quick reminder that you can still get your Thrive Nutrition RDN canvas tote bag in the shop on my website. I've dropped the link below for quick shopping. These bags are super sturdy. They hold a lot of good fresh produce. And here in Colorado, plastic bags are banned at the grocery store, so these are the perfect reusable option. And a bonus is that you support small business. Okay, so there you have it, the real deal on soy. Despite all the noise and myths out there, the research continues to support moderate soy intake as safe and actually beneficial for most people. Let's hit the highlights. Soy does not seem to increase breast cancer risk and may even offer some protection. Soy doesn't mess with male hormones. Nope, it won't cause feminization. And unless you have unmanaged thyroid issues, soy is totally safe to include. The key is quality and balance. Stick with minimally processed options like your tofu, tempeh, or edamame, or unsweetened soy milk, and you're golden. If this video helped clear up some soy confusion, hit that thumbs up and share with someone who still thinks that soy is the enemy, because we all know at least one person. And if you're into evidence-based nutrition that actually makes sense in real life, no hype, no fear, no BS, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Now that we talked soy protein, let's dive deeper into protein facts. Click the video on your screen right now, and I'll meet you over there. Until then, eat well, be well, thrive. And cheers to you all out there.